Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this brief tutorial I'm going to show you how to record voiceovers in Adobe Audition CS6 using both the Waveform view and the Multitrack view. But before we begin, of course, we need to actually choose the device that we're going to be using to record with. Now, whether you've got a USB microphone or a proper condenser or dynamic microphone connected to an external sound card, or you're going through a mixer and then going into a sound card, you need to choose that device before you begin. So on the Mac side, we'll go up to Audition, Preferences, Audio Hardware, and on the PC that'll be under the Edit menu under Edit Preferences, Audio Hardware, and you can choose your default ins and outs. And you can see here that I've got a couple of different options here. This is the built-in on my laptop, this is the display audio on my Thunderbolt, but I'm actually using an external USB sound device, the Scarlett, Focusrite Scarlett. So I'm going to choose that for both my ins and outs. That'll also be set for my master clock. Something to keep in mind, while we do allow you to set the in and out separately, if you're going to be recording anything, for best results, you want those to be the same. Sometimes you can have dropout issues, you can have clock sync issues. It's just best to keep them consistent. Now, one other thing that you might need to know or be concerned with is this buffer size here. Now, by default, this is set to around 512. I'll typically set this a little bit lower to around 128. Basically, when you're dealing with your buffer size, you're dealing with latency. And the lower the buffer, the lower the latency, the better for monitoring, but sometimes your machine or your sound device can't really handle such low numbers. And you can see we can go all the way down to 16. So if you find that you're having like weird issues or things are either sounding delayed when you're monitoring, you can drop the buffer. But keep in mind that if you start to have things like dropouts or any issues, Audition will actually tell you down here on the bottom right, and it'll tell you detecting dropped samples or something like that, in which case you would just have to raise the buffer level. I typically set mine to 128 on a reasonably fast laptop, and I'm okay. Last thing you want to set, this is just the default sample rate for the device. 48 or 44 is going to be your standard. I usually work in 48 because most of the audio I do these days is tied to video. If you're doing something specifically for radio or broadcast, 44.1 is just fine. Also, if you go into audio channel mapping, here's where you can choose the default device for not only recording in general, but also for something like the Waveform view. So if we record directly into the Waveform view, it's going to use the default mic 1, mic 2 inputs on my sound device to record there. Now, typically, that's pretty standard, but I might have, again, a microphone going into a mixer, which is then feeding line inputs on my device. So maybe 3 and 4 are the defaults I want to use. This is what you need to know if you're going to be recording in that Waveform view and you want to use a particular input at a particular time. So here's where you set those defaults. Similarly, here's where you set the defaults for the output. So once you've done that, now you're ready to begin recording. So from within the Waveform view, I'll go up to File, New, Audio File. I'll call this Jace Voiceover. Again, I can choose my sample rate. We'll just keep it at 44.1 because I'll assume I'm going to audio only here, no video. Now, channels. Now, again, I'm recording a single input on a single microphone into my device. So I'm going to record as mono, one channel. Now, we're not going to deliver as mono, one channel, typically ever. We can convert to stereo after the fact. If we were to choose stereo here, because I only have sound going into channel 1, or effectively the left channel, that would give me a stereo file with audio on the left and nothing on the right. So we don't want that. So just go ahead and choose mono, and I'll show you at the end how to convert that to stereo. Lastly, bit depth. Typically you want to keep this at the default, which is 32-bit float. Now again, if you're not going to process or do anything to this after the fact, you can go ahead and just record it as 16-bit. That's going to be your standard for CD audio, for broadcast, for radio, etc. If you're going to add anything like compression, reverb, EQ, delay, any kind of effects, you want to be at 32-bit float, which is the standard. Click OK on that, and now you'll see this basically blank interface. Now, if we go down to our level meters here, and double click, you're actually now going to see the level, the input level of my voice going into my microphone here. And I'm actually speaking on an Audio-Technica 4060 tube microphone, condenser tube microphone. And again, one of the things that you need to do before you even begin recording is something called gain staging the mic input, the mic preamp. Now this is going to vary between sound cards, and I could do a whole separate episode just on this. Basically what gain staging does is it gives you the best level possible, the best signal to noise ratio possible, or more simply, just the best level so that you don't go above 0 dB FS, that's 0 dB full scale. Remember that when we're talking with digital audio, we're dealing in a negative logarithmic scale, where 0 is as loud or as hot as possible. So again, you want to be somewhere in the -9 to -3 range. You can see that I'm kind of even hovering slightly below that. That's fine. You can give yourself a little bit of headroom. We can always normalize later. You don't want to be peaking up at 0. It's just too risky, and there's no reason to do that anyway because, again, we can always modify those things after the fact. So if your average level is somewhere between -12 and -3 for your peaks, that's good to go. So once we've got that set, again, we can always right-click here and show different decibel ranges. If you just want to kind of see the peaks, I can go into a 24 dB range here. Or if you want to see a bit more, we can go into something like a 72 dB range. Typically, though, I'll keep it at around 48. Now that we're ready, I'm going to go ahead and click record here. And I'm just going to record a little voiceover. I've been working on some for a friend of mine over at Processing Directive, which is a show on a station called Codebase Radio. So let's do it. Low voice mode on. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and when I'm looking for inspiration, I look no further than Processing Directive, only on Codebase Radio. And there you have it, one take. Let's take a listen. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and when I'm looking for inspiration, I look no further than Processing Directive, only on Codebase Radio. Now this is great because as you can see here, I clearly am not using a pop filter, which is why I ended up with these little popping P's. You can hear it right there. So one of the cool things is that basically I can simply select those. I can go up to my effects menu, amplitude compression, filter and EQ, FFT filter, and inside the FFT you'll see we've got a preset here called Kill the Mic Rumble. Apply it, takes it out, and now I'm looking for inspiration. And when I'm looking for inspiration, it's gone. I even have a little one right here. Again, I can select this. If you need to zoom in a bit more, to be a bit more precise, you can do that. Go up to the effects, edit menu, repeat last command. Let's go ahead and apply it there. Now again, if I had a pop filter, which you should always use, I wouldn't have had to have done this, but it's always fun to be able to show you these things. Let's just repeat it, apply it, play that back. Then Processing Directive. No problem there. One last one right here. All right, edit, repeat last command. It holds the preset, apply. Only on Codebase Radio. Brilliant. Okay, good to go. So that is recording directly into the waveform view. Now again, if I want to do this in the multitrack, I can create a new multitrack session. So I'll go File, New Multitrack Session. Call this Jace VOMT. And one of the cool things is that we also have some presets and some templates in here. And you can see that one of them is radio voiceover with music ducking. Now this is very essential if you're going to have any kind of musical component playing underneath your voice, because it'll automatically set up something known as a sidechain compressor, which basically will squish the music down or squash the music down in volume when you're speaking, and when you're not speaking, it raises the volume of the music. This is great if you want to effectively duck, which is a very common process. So we can actually use that template, click OK. And now you can see it already pre-labels track 1 with voiceover, track 2 telling you to place your music there, and on the master here we've already added some multiband compression and a hard limiter just to thicken everything up. Now again, just like in the waveform view, here you actually need to decide, you need to tell the channel which input you're going to use. There are no defaults here per se, although it'll often default to the standard stereo input, but we don't want that because we're also recording mono here. So again, I'm going to just click on the little flyout menu here, and by the way, I chose my input and output button up here. Go into mono, Scarlett, USB mic channel 1. But now we have our level. Again, if I wanted to monitor this directly, I could click on the eye here. Now this is again going to determine, depending upon how you have your buffer setting set, if you're getting a big slapback echo, like hi, this is Jason. If you're getting something like that, you gotta use a smaller buffer. Now again, your device might not be able to handle that, so that's gonna depend. You gotta kind of play around with that. For me though, I don't need to monitor this. I'll leave that off. I can see the levels just fine there. Once I've got it set, I can go ahead and click record. And now we're recording a voiceover using my standard radio voice. There it is. Wind back. Play. And now we're recording a voiceover using my standard radio voice. And that, my friends, is basic recording a voiceover in Audition CS6. Now the very last step is to actually show you how to convert this to stereo if you're going to be delivering this mono file, either as is or post-processing. So I just double click on the one that I just created, and of course you can always double click on them from within the Files panel here. To convert them effectively, all you need to do is go up to the Edit menu, and choose Convert Sample Type. Now it won't allow us to choose the sample rate here because this file exists in the multitrack session. So if you're ever trying to convert something and it's not letting you change the sample rate, if that file is part of an existing multitrack session, it won't let you. You need to take it out of the session or close the session. So that's why we can't change the sample rate here. But for us, we want to change it channels, so we want to go to stereo. Bit depth, now again, we could convert to 16 if we were ready to deliver, or we could just keep it at 32-bit, which is the native format, and if you're going to be doing any kind of processing. If you are going to be converting to 16-bit, you're going to want to enable dithering, and you can just use the default triangular type. I think this one is perfect. We don't need any noise shaping. Click OK. And very quickly it converts that file into a stereo file. And once again, you can see, because I didn't use a pop filter, we've got a nice little plosive that we'd like to get rid of. So I can go to my FFT, kill the mic rumble, apply it, play it back. We're recording a voiceover, and we're good to go.